Everyone wants to be untouchable, not cold, not heartless, just immune. Immune to disrespect, to silence, to betrayal. But most people confuse numbness with strength. They shut down, cut off, play it cool, thinking that's what power looks like. But Carl Jung understood something deeper. He said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And that's exactly why you still break. Why one comment can ruin your whole day. Why one look, one tone can unravel weeks of self-discipline. Because being mentally untouchable is not about not feeling. It's about not being ruled by what you feel. The world tells you to be strong, but it never teaches you what strength really is. It teaches you defense, not depth, performance, not presence. And here's the truth. You can read all the books, go to all the therapy, say all the affirmations, but if your wounds are still in control of your reactions, you are not untouchable. You are on a leash, held by everything you refuse to face. Most people think they're in control, until something small breaks them. A text left unread, a delayed response, a subtle rejection. That's when the illusion of strength shatters. Because what's really in charge isn't your logic. It's your programming, the wounds you never named, the fears you inherited, the meanings you assigned to moments when you were too young to understand what was happening. You don't overthink because you're analytical. You overthink because your nervous system was trained to detect danger in silence, in disconnection, in unpredictability. And so the mind builds a cage, not to trap others, but to protect you from feelings you've never learned to sit with. Carl Jung didn't talk about positive thinking. He talked about integration, about seeing the shadow you've been running from and choosing to stand still. Because the enemy isn't outside. It's the trigger inside you that turns every difficult moment into a personal collapse. And as long as that trigger goes unchecked, you're not untouchable. You're just unhealed. You'll keep interpreting discomfort as danger, silence as rejection, criticism as abandonment. And every time you'll give away your power, not to the world, but to your own unconscious mind. So how do you become mentally untouchable? You don't build walls. You build awareness. Because real strength is not the absence of emotion. It's the mastery of emotion. The ability to hold it without becoming it. The person who triggers you isn't the threat. The threat is the version of you that still needs them to validate your worth. And here's the paradox. The more you try to protect yourself from pain, the more power it has over you. Jung believed that the unconscious doesn't just sit in the background. It acts. It speaks through your reactions, your patterns, your breakdowns. And until you learn to recognize its voice, you will confuse instinct with wisdom. Here's the turning point. When something hurts you, pause. Not to suppress, not to pretend it doesn't matter, but to ask, is this pain coming from the present or from the past trying to protect itself? Because the moment you realize that not every emotion is a command, you break the cycle. You stop reacting. You start choosing. And that's where untouchability begins. Not when nothing reaches you, but when nothing controls you. You can feel disappointment and not spiral. You can feel anger and not explode. You can feel sadness and still move forward. That's not indifference. That's power. Carl Jung didn't want you to be fearless. He wanted you to be whole. And there's a difference. Fearlessness is what the ego pretends to be. Wholeness is what the soul actually becomes. See, the ego wants to appear strong, calm, composed, in control. But beneath that mask lives your shadow, the parts of you you've exiled, the anger you swallowed, the need you denied, the shame you never admitted to anyone. And the problem? What you exile doesn't disappear. It waits. It shows up in your relationships, in your overreactions, in the way you suddenly feel small around certain people and don't know why. Jung called this projection. You think the other person is triggering you, but really, they're just reflecting back the part of you you haven't made peace with yet. You can't be mentally untouchable while you're still at war with yourself. You can't hold your ground if half of you is still hiding in the dark. Integration isn't about becoming something new. It's about reclaiming what you already are. The parts you were told were too much, or not enough, the parts you buried to be loved. And this is what separates surface content from inner transformation. It's not about learning how to win in life. It's about no longer losing to the voices in your head that were never truly yours to begin with. You want to be mentally untouchable? Then you have to meet yourself fully, even the parts you were taught to fear, especially those parts. Because wholeness isn't pretty. It's not clean. It's raw. It's emotional. It's deeply honest. But from that honesty comes something unstoppable. A peace no one can touch because it wasn't built for them. It was built for you. So now, you see it. The enemy isn't what happens to you. It's what you do with it afterward. It's not the trigger. It's the surrender. But here's where you shift. You want to be mentally untouchable. Then you stop seeking peace by avoiding chaos. You start building peace within the chaos. Right in the noise. Right in the heat. Here's how. First, pause before the pattern. Every reaction you've rehearsed. Defensiveness, overthinking, shutting down. It's not who you are. It's who you became to survive. So next time the emotion spikes, don't act. Observe. You're not weak for feeling it. You're powerful if you can stay present with it without needing to become it. Second, notice what hooks you. The need to prove yourself, to explain, to be understood. Every time that impulse rises, ask, what am I afraid will happen if I don't? You'll find it. The root. That ancient voice, still trying to earn love. And that's where the third move comes in. Internal reparenting. Speak to yourself the way no one ever did, not with fluffy affirmations, but with radical honesty and compassion. You're not broken. You're triggered. And triggered doesn't mean weak. It means there's something here that finally wants to be seen. Jung taught that integration is an active process. And power is not about who you can dominate. It's about who you no longer let dominate you. So the next time someone tests you, with silence, with disrespect, with dismissal, don't rise to it. Rise above it. And not from ego, from center, from a grounded place that says, I no longer need your validation to remember who I am. That's not detachment. That's sovereignty. That's not coldness. That's clarity. And that's the kind of strength that doesn't just impress people. It unsettles them. Because they can't use what no longer reacts. You don't need to be unbothered. You need to be unshakable. And there's a difference. Unbothered is a mask. Unshakable is a foundation. It's not about what you show others. It's about what you no longer need to hide from yourself. When someone disrespects you, you don't collapse. You don't retaliate. You don't shrink. You notice. You choose. You move on without carrying the weight of their ignorance. And when life doesn't go your way, when the door closes, when the silence lasts too long, you don't fall apart. Because you've stopped confusing outcomes with identity. You've stopped measuring your worth by how smooth things feel. You're not mentally untouchable because nothing hurts you. You're untouchable because nothing owns you anymore. Not their opinions, not your past, not even your pain. You faced it all and stayed. You didn't escape. You integrated. And now you walk through the world with a stillness that scares people. Not because you're distant, but because you're rooted. Because they can no longer manipulate the storm in you. It's gone quiet. That silence, that peace, that terrifying calm that no one can shake, that's not emptiness. That's power. And you built it.